Good morning, everyone. My name is Paula Bernat. I'm the Director of Nova Scotia Operations for Canada Post. I do like to move around, so I'm going to try and stay here so you can all hear me. It'll be really difficult, though, because I do like to move around a bit. So what I'd like to do today is just to share a bit of our journey. So it really has had some ups and downs. We've had a lot of successes, but we've also had a lot of challenges. And in tackling those challenges, I think we've continued as a team to learn some very valuable lessons. So what I'd like to take you through today is really just a bit about Canada Post, so our profile here in Nova Scotia. Again, to talk a bit about the challenges that we faced in this journey. Really look at where we focus, the strategy of what we put in place to make change. And then finally, just talk about some of the benefits of some of the changes that we've seen. All right, there I got it to work, fantastic. So, and I'll go right ahead. One of the key messages that I really would like to leave with you today is that I most certainly didn't do it myself. I was not the only person that was making this happen. This took a lot of people to have this success and to really work hard and work together to make this change. So that's really one of the primary themes that you'll see throughout my presentation. It wasn't just a leader, it was really a coalition of change. Okay, so a bit about Canada Post here in Nova Scotia. So in June 2012, I took over the leadership seat, and I'll tell you just a brief story about that. I think I was in the job a week, and I received an email from our Senior Vice President of Operations saying, "Paula, you have a problem." I sat there and went, "Okay." And he said, "I'm coming down in 1 week. We're meeting with the board. You need to fix this. You're having way too many incidents. This can't continue." Okay. So a week later, I was scurrying to kind of gather together my thoughts to sort of establish what the landscape was, to really understand what was going on. And Bob, our workplace coach, as well as a number of the senior executives from the board came in to have this meeting, and I was still sort of compiling my thoughts in my head, and they said, "We're here to help." And I kind of sat there and went, "Oh, wow." I had some ideas in mind. I sort of had kind of really worked out a bit of a strategy to move forward, and then the board was saying, "We're here to help." So it kind of threw me off a bit, and I really had to just be open, be honest, and really trust that they were there to help. Those of you that are, part of government, as we're a Crown Corp, you know that typically you'll hear your head office say, "We're here to help." So not always is that true in many cases. For us, we had a frequency rate of 12. So out of every 100 employees in Nova Scotia, 12 were being injured. We have 245 offices in Nova Scotia that we provide service to. We have around 300 vehicles, just over 2,000 employees, and that's managed through 6 different management teams. At the time in June 2012, we were really, I would say, as Stuart talked about before, in a place of compliance. Were we doing our joint health and safety committee meetings? Tick. Were we doing our workplace inspections? Tick. Were we filling out the incident logs? Somewhat tick. So again, our focus was really, in my opinion, around compliance. We were doing all the kind of must-dos, but not really taking ownership, I would say. So some of the challenges that we faced along the way, it's really, it's been a very good growing experience for myself as a leader. For myself, I care about my team, I care about employees, and so it was really about how do I get my team, and by my team, I have a leadership team of roughly about 75. How do I get 75 people to care? How do I start to change a culture? How do I really give those signals that show that we're making change? So our culture and how we managed employee relations was one of the critical things. We were very much a culture that was quick to discipline. If you didn't wear your seatbelt, there was an outcome for that. If you didn't use safe lifting techniques, there was a discipline for that. We didn't have a lot of conversation. So one of the first things that we took on was just taking a look at how we approached our employee relations, how we really talked to employees, how we really made that influence at the employee level. One of the things that was really important was for us to actually put managers in places where they needed to be. I'm not sure if any of the other agencies are here, but typically in the past, when you were on an occupational health and safety committee, you had drawn the short straw. So you were the one there. You were either the newest to the shift or the newest to the facility, or somehow you were the only person there, and that meant you had the short straw. What we really discovered in looking at our culture and again, how we manage that employee relations piece, we didn't have the managers who were the decision makers in our organization at the right seats at the table. So things like the joint occupational health and safety committees, they needed to be there to make decisions, and they weren't. We really had a malaise, I would say, in our view of accidents versus incidents. So we thought, accidents happen. We work out in the, out delivering the mail. It's going to snow, it's going to be slippery. And the perspective of employees and our leadership was that, well, accidents just happen. There wasn't really that thought that, the road to zero is possible, or having a workplace without accidents is possible. We really were challenged through our journey to maintain the relevance and continuity of the vision and the goals. So what were we trying to accomplish? Who did we need to involve in that? That was one of our challenges as we went through this evolution of change. We also had competing priorities. So in the past, traditionally Canada Post has been a company that would not shut the doors. We would do our best and limp by. So if in the plant it was a blizzard outside and 2 employees made it to work, great, we'll just limp by and do our best. So really, how do you manage those competing priorities like that, where you're a culture that operationally there isn't another decision? It's not a decision to shut down. So for myself as a senior leader, I was constantly having to defend my decisions in terms of situations like that, where I was saying, no, we're not going to operate today. We're not going to deliver today. And those competing priorities provided a significant challenge along the way. Throughout this, we also had some organizational changes. So as you know, we've been putting in community mailboxes. We're on hold right now. That's temporary, by the way. So some of those organizational changes, we were making operational change. We were changing how people did their work. We were changing, again, with community mailboxes, where they do their work. So those kind of changes were really challenging when you're trying to engage an employee population and make change and change a culture. When you're changing the constituent elements of their work and taking away job control and making really significant changes, they're not as willing to buy in and be as invested as you would like them to be in their own safety. We had silos in the organization, so between different groups, we really were siloed, and it was challenging to bring the groups together to really take a coordinated effort and take a focus on this challenge. And then finally, the final challenge was around allocation of resources and the scope. So when we began this journey, we actually focused on Halifax and Dartmouth, so Metro Halifax, because their frequency was up around 23. So again, it was, how do you allocate resources? How do you stay focused? And well, where do you scope it? How do you, really keep that focus? So what I'll share a bit of now is just really some of the strategy or the pillars of the approach that we took. So first and foremost, leadership accountability. So Stuart talked a lot about leadership. Leadership is what I would say to you, and at all levels. So really that safety first every day, every meeting. So every meeting we start with safety. Everything that we would do, we would start first with safety. So 3 times a week, I have a operational call with my team. I start that call with any incidents or accidents to understand if we've had any significant incidents. Interactions versus observation. So we were a company that would like to go out and observe employees. Well, for me, you don't change habits, you don't change behaviors unless you have interactions. Observations are from far. If you look at the Webster's Dictionary, an observation is from afar. There's not really that interaction with an individual, and that's really important. You don't make change unless you have interactions with that frontline supervisor or that frontline employee. We established a scorecard. So one of the things that we would monitor were, in the beginning, really in-process indicators from the perspective that we were looking at the quality, let's say, as an example, of accident investigations. And that scorecard of measure evolved as we really tackled the challenges. So for me, the first challenge was getting control with a frequency of 12 of the incidents. So how can we really wrap our arms around those incidents and understand how we're doing and what we're not doing well? So that was the first part of the scorecard, establishing that. And then as we tackled certain challenges, the scorecard itself and the measures changed and evolved to really keep the leadership or the managers focused on what we needed them to do to help with the safety journey. We established, I shouldn't say established, but I'll say we stole shamelessly, and one of our other regions established a safety leadership assessment. So this tool gave us the ability to go out, talk to our leadership and talk to them about safety and talk to employees, and to test the message in some parts of this assessment. So as you're going along and talking about safety talks, and you have, I'm sure in other areas, supervisors, superintendents, managers in my organization were saying, are you doing safety talks? They're all going, yep, or tick, whichever way you'd like to look at that. And so really for me, I wanted to talk to employees and see if that was resonating. Was that really getting to the front line? What was the last safety talk you had? And lots of times I would get a blank stare. So why was that? Again, the safety leadership assessment was a great tool to, again, test the message at various points in your culture change. So as an example, I talked about that, testing the message on the safety talks. Another way was how knowledgeable were the supervisors on the last incident that happened in their workplace? What was that last incident? How many incidents have they had? Who's on their occupational health and safety committee, their joint health and safety committee? So some of those things were really critical for us to establish that baseline of safety leadership. And finally, recognition. So one of the things that we as a company tend to do is we like to wait till the big things happen to recognize people. So one of the things we talked about in these safety leadership assessments and just broadly as an organization was how can we really reinforce safety leadership behaviors, whether it's that frontline employee or that team leader, through recognition. So what are some of those ways that we could do that? One of the key partnerships, areas of partnership was around internal injury management, and I've already talked a bit about this, but one of the challenges we had was around role clarity. So we really did map out very clearly and succinctly, if you're a supervisor, this is what you do. If you're a superintendent, this is what you do, and if you're a manager, this is what you do. I will say, Christina's in the room and others are in the room that manage our claims. Are we perfect now? We're getting there, but we still have a ways to go. So there's still always opportunity in that injury management piece. So really, again, staying focused on the quality of investigation and the documentation. So one of the things that, again, we continue to struggle with is even that letter of offer of modified duties. So do we get that out to the employee? Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. Do we have a record of that to give to poor Christina? Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. So those critical things that managing the injury, we really needed to nail down. And as I've said, I won't say we're perfect, we're still trying. So some of these challenges really do take some commitment and continued focus. And then lastly, in terms of internal injury management, really around that early intervention. So how do we make sure that we understand what's happened to the employee in terms of their injury? How can we help them return to work as quickly as possible? So another area of focus in terms of partnerships, and again, talking to what Stuart and Paul were speaking to earlier, partnerships were key for us. So we have the occupational health and safety team. They were supportive of us and helped us manage some of those things like the scorecard. They helped us as well in terms of the quality of investigation and documentation. Similarly with our occupational abilities team, they would come to the meetings and tell us, these are the themes we see. So I see Chris over there. He would come to our team meetings and share with us some of the things that he was seeing in our claims in terms of trends and maybe some of the gaps that he was seeing. And then finally, really we would see a couple of last partnerships on the slide there with WCB. So the first one would be with our workplace coach, and our workplace coach is Bob, and we're very fortunate to have him. And then finally, just in terms of the case management team. So I referenced Christina earlier, and most certainly, there's a large team that does our case management, and it was really important for us to interact with them, to understand their needs, because they had a lot of good insight. And I know we had a lot of situations where we had big opportunities to reduce the cost of claims, and they were critical to that. So sometimes you really have to, I think, as some would say, open the kimono and be very brave and really be open to, as an example in this case, the case management team saying, you're doing a really good job here, but you're doing a really crappy job over here, or we don't see the action that we need over there. So taking that feedback and taking action. Again, are we perfect? We're still working at it, but I do appreciate that they're able to commit the time and to commit, Dave and Christina have been on site and have given us feedback and worked with us really well, so that's been fantastic. And our workplace coach, Bob, has been with us throughout the journey. I think we're what now, Bob, at our 3rd anniversary? Yes, I don't know what that means, paper, plastic, I don't know. But anyways, finally, in terms of, the strategy that we leveraged, really again that once we got a hold of the incidents themselves and understood what was kind of driving that side of the house and managing those better, we could really then take our focus and shift it to prevention. So what was the data telling us? So if you look at our data, between 2 and 3:30 in the afternoon are 95% of my incidents. 95% of my incidents. 80% of them are slips, trips, and falls. In a specific area in Halifax in delivery, we had a time frame where 80% of them were on the second step. So I've delivered your mail in the mailbox, I then turn around, I'm already probably thinking about the place I'm going next. Maybe I'm looking at my mail, which I shouldn't, maybe I don't grab the handrail, and I have a tumble down the stairs. So really digging into the data, and what I focused on with the team there was, if you had to go out and talk to employees, what would your safety story be? And at first they kind of looked at me and went, I don't know. I said, well then you have some work to do. So really understanding what the data would tell you for each of the areas. So in Nova Scotia with 6 management teams, that means I have a local area in Cape Breton, I have another local area in southern Nova Scotia and another one in central. And then I also have a plant I have where they process the mail. I also have, of course, in Metro, the delivery teams that go out and deliver the mail. And then I would Also have within that mail service couriers that drive vans. So very different for everybody. So the safety story really had to be reflected by each of those individuals and by those individual teams so that when they went out and talked to employees, they were well informed. So they could say, did you know we've had one incident in the last 2 weeks? Do you know what that incident was? Do you know why that happened? So really understanding that. Excuse me. Secondly, in terms of prevention, really that LJOSH effectiveness. So as I said in the beginning of the presentation, we were very tick, 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 tick compliance. We've done our meeting, we've done our inspection, tick, 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 great, fantastic. But the minutes, in some cases, I am not kidding you, the minutes were this thick with unresolved issues. Unresolved issues. So we really took a significant focus on those minutes to get them cleaned up, to get them down to something that was reasonable, and to have the decision makers in the room, not the guy that picked the short straw. So make sure that the people that can make decisions about buying a fan or moving a fan or addressing, again, a safety concern were in the room to make those decisions. And finally, in terms of the prevention focus, working with our workplace coach, we identified a series of gaps in terms of our workplace culture. We established a change team, and they've been working through an action plan to really help us bridge the gaps. So really, we knew that our gaps were around injury management. We had some challenges around return to work. We had some challenges in terms of communication. So really working hard to address those gaps and putting together change teams to do that. And what I found was really people got excited about being able to make change in the organization, that it was really powerful to give employees and frontline leaders that opportunity. We did work with the union to try our best to try and engage the union as a partner in this. And I thought, Bob, you were like this close. We tried many times to engage the union, but at some point, we really just had to say to them, we're going on this journey without you. If you don't want to work with us around the safety of your employees, that's too bad, but we are going on this journey. So I'm going to talk a bit about the benefits, and I've got specifically up there the benefits of a workplace coach, but I'll probably talk to a bit more than that. The benefits of a workplace coach, I guess, for me, were really, I guess, as a leader, were fantastic. You know, they understand the safety culture and that it's about change and that it's about a journey. It's not going to happen overnight. And for us, I'll admit, last year we had a bit of a gap. We took our foot off the gas and we saw our frequency pop up. We weren't doing as many safety interactions. We weren't doing effective preventative measures. We weren't doing as much hazard identification. So really, they understand that it's a journey and that it's changing a culture. And so they'll help you. So when you make those little mistakes, like taking your foot off the gas, they'll pick you up off the floor and dust you off and help you focus. They provide great insights in terms of best practice in other industries. So we had the opportunity, for example, to work with Brad Dole from NSLC. We went over, met Brad, talked to him about his team of doers, or his change team, and talked about his journey and really shared some information that he had in terms of his successes and some of his best practices. They act as a process guide to change, and change isn't easy, and as one of our senior VPs used to say, the only people that like change are babies. And so when you're trying to get people to change habits, so you're trying to get people to change what they do every day, and that's what this is about because it is culture change. It's difficult. It's not for the faint of heart. And if you're not going to be fully committed, don't do it. Just don't do it. As a workplace coach, they also help identify roles and responsibilities. So who does that belong to? Who does that really belong to, and how does that need to resonate in the organization? And as I said, they're knowledgeable about the pitfalls. So we probably had a couple places where we zigged when we should have zagged, so they helped us with that. They also helped connect us to networks inside WCB to resolve issues. So when we were having challenges with certain things, how could we resolve those issues? How could we work together to resolve issues to make the work that we were doing more effective? What we also found, though, we saw a better engagement of employees. We saw a growth opportunity for the team. So those that participated as part of the change team, they really were able to, it was actually, for me, it was awe-inspiring when you saw different people that you would never have expected step up and take the lead on certain things, that would say, I'm going to do that, I'd like to participate. Someone that maybe is on the afternoon shift running our mail service courier operation, he stepped up and he's created and supported improving some of our safety talks and done a fantastic job. Would you have ever thought that it would be him? No, but again, it's an opportunity for growth for the team and for us to see different people in the organization develop and grow and again, to identify talent in the organization. We saw reduced costs. So where are we today? Well, we went from a frequency of 12. We're hovering around 5 right now. Do I think we can go lower? Absolutely. We've been through a lot of change in the organization over this last 2 years, so it's been a bit challenging in terms of, again, maintaining that engagement and commitment. But I think for us, we've seen a significant reduction in costs, and whether you think about it in terms of the cost of claims overall, in terms of the severity of claims, or even just in terms of the frequency, we've seen a reduction in costs. And really what's been most, I think, I guess, fruitful or for me as a leader is for people to say to me, so employees on the front line and even some of our union leadership, to say, you care. You care about our safety. You demonstrated that in the decisions that you've made when you've decided to not send us out for delivery. You've demonstrated that over, and I had so many opportunities last year with the winter that we had, and I hope that this winter is not the same. But we've had many of those folks come up and say, you know what, you guys are doing a better job. It's not perfect, but we appreciate that you care about our safety. And what I say to our team, in terms of the road ahead, it is still about leadership. It is still about engagement. It is still about partnerships, but you have to care. And I think they've now all gotten to the place where they understand and they care, and really talking about what matters most. I say to my team that my office, I have a window that I can see outside, which is nice. But on the sidewalk every day, I see an employee, her name's Debbie, and she walks down the sidewalk with a limp. And she was one of our injured employees. So her life will never be the same. For a period of time, she couldn't even drive herself. So, really, I think the team is at a place now where we know what matters most and why we need to do it. We need to care about our employees and keep showing that we care and keep focused on the why that we care. And thinking about every incident as something significant, that it's not an accident, that it could have been prevented, and how can we do that in the future? So that's the end of my slide deck. I see there's some other fun for you ahead. I appreciate giving me the time today to talk about the journey. We still have a ways to go as an organization and as a leadership team, but I'm pleased at the progress that we've made and the success that we've had. And really, I'd like to thank the WCB team for the partnerships and the support that you've provided, even when in some cases we haven't done the things that we should have done, or in trying to work through some of our challenges and issues. I really appreciate the commitment of those of you that are in the room that we work with day in and day out, and most certainly my team back in the corner there that also supports myself and my team in terms of trying to tackle this and our road ahead to success. So thank you very much.